The message came on a Tuesday morning. It appeared on every screen, every radio, every device that could receive a signal. Governments around the world scrambled to understand what was happening. Military bases went on high alert. Scientists stared at their instruments in disbelief. Catherine Morris was drinking her second cup of coffee when her phone rang. She was the senior ambassador for Earth's newly formed Space Relations Department, a job that had been mostly ceremonial until that moment. The voice on the other end belonged to the Secretary General himself. "We need you in New York now." 3 hours later, Catherine stood before a room full of the most powerful people on Earth. The message had been decoded. It was not from any nation. It was not from any human source at all. The Galactic Council of 12 sovereign species had sent humanity an invitation. Or rather, a summons. Catherine read the translation slowly, making sure she understood every word. The Council had existed for over 40,000 years. They had watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the galaxy. They had seen humanity take its first steps on the moon, build its first space stations, and finally develop faster-than-light travel 3 centuries ago. They had been watching in silence all this time. Now they wanted to meet. The debate lasted for 6 days. Some argued it was a trap. Others believed it was an opportunity. A few suggested ignoring the message entirely. But in the end, everyone agreed on one thing. Someone had to go, Catherine volunteered. She was 53 years old, had no family to leave behind, and had spent her entire career preparing for moments that most people believed would never come. If humanity was going to face an alien council, she wanted to be the one to speak for her species. Captain Daniel Hayes was assigned to fly her there. He was a quiet man with gray hair and steady hands, a veteran of the Deep Space Exploration Program. His ship, the Horizon, was small but fast. Designed for diplomatic missions to the outer colonies, the crew consisted of 12 people: scientists, translators, security officers, and one doctor who spent most of the journey looking nervous. Catherine did not blame her. They all felt the same way. The journey took 11 days through fold space, the method humanity had developed to travel faster than light. It worked by folding the fabric of space itself, allowing ships to skip across vast distances in moments. The technology was still new to humans, barely 300 years old. Catherine wondered how primitive it must seem to beings who had mastered the stars for 40 millennia. The Council's capital station orbited a dying star at the center of the galaxy. When the Horizon emerged from fold space, Catherine pressed her face against the viewport and forgot how to breathe. The station was massive beyond comprehension. It stretched across thousands of kilometers, a web of metal and light and structures that defied human understanding. Ships of every shape and size moved through its corridors like blood cells through veins. Some were elegant and flowing. Others were blocky and industrial. A few seemed to exist in more dimensions than Catherine's eyes could process. A docking bay opened for them. Captain Hayes guided the Horizon inside with careful precision. When the ship finally settled and the engines went quiet, Catherine realized her hands were shaking. The council chamber was located at the heart of the station. Catherine walked through corridors that hummed with energy, past beings that looked at her with curiosity, fear, or indifference. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. One creature appeared to be made entirely of liquid metal, flowing alongside her before disappearing down a side passage. She entered the chamber alone. That had been the council's requirement. No guards, no advisors, no weapons. Just one human standing before the rulers of the galaxy. The chamber was circular, with 12 elevated platforms arranged in a ring. On each platform sat a being from one of the 12 sovereign species. Catherine recognized none of them from humanity's limited contact with alien life. These were older races, ancient beyond imagination. The Velthari spoke first. They were crystalline entities, their bodies made of something that looked like living glass. They communicated through patterns of light that flickered across their surfaces, translated into sound by devices embedded in the chamber walls. Human. You have been summoned to receive judgment. Catherine's throat went dry. Judgment. The Council has observed your species for many cycles. We have studied your history, your wars, your technologies, your expansion into the stars. We have deliberated for 100 of your years. Our decision has been reached. The other 11 beings remained silent, but Catherine could feel their attention pressing down on her like a physical weight. She straightened her spine and lifted her chin. What decision? The Velthary's light patterns shifted into something that might have been sadness, or might have been contempt. Catherine could not tell. Humanity has been judged too dangerous to be permitted further expansion. Your species is aggressive, unpredictable, and volatile. You wage war against yourselves with alarming frequency. You develop weapons of destruction faster than tools of creation. You consume resources without thought for consequence. Left unchecked, you will destabilize the galactic order that has maintained peace for 40,000 years. Catherine felt cold spreading through her chest. What are you saying? Earth will be quarantined. All human vessels beyond your solar system will be recalled immediately. Your faster-than-light technology will be confiscated. You will be confined to your home system until such time as the Council deems you ready for integration, if that time ever comes. And if we refuse? The chamber fell completely silent. Catherine was not sure if anyone had ever asked that question before. The Velthary's lights flickered rapidly. Okay. A pattern she interpreted as surprise. Refusal is not an option. Species that resist Council judgment are removed from the galaxy. Permanently, completely. Your planets would be sterilized. Your colonies destroyed. Your ships burned from the sky. Nothing would remain to indicate that humanity ever existed. Catherine stood very still. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Every instinct told her to bow, to agree, to do whatever was necessary to survive. The Council had the power to do exactly what they threatened. She did not doubt that for a moment, but something else rose up inside her. Something old and stubborn and very, very human. You have watched us for thousands of years, she said slowly. You have seen our wars, yes? But you have also seen our art, our music, our love, our courage. You have seen us rebuild after every disaster. You have seen us reach for the stars even when we had every reason to stay on the ground. You call us dangerous. I call us determined. The Velthary's lights went still. Your determination is precisely what concerns us. Catherine took a deep breath. Then you should be very concerned. Because I am going to return to Earth and tell my people what you have decided, and I do not think they are going to accept it. She turned and walked out of the chamber before anyone could respond. Her legs felt like water, but she kept them steady until she was back aboard the Horizon. Captain Hayes met her at the airlock. How did it go? Catherine looked at him with eyes that had seen the weight of galactic authority and refused to bend beneath it. We have 60 days, she said. After that, they are going to try to destroy us. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. We had better get home and get ready. The Horizon departed from the station and jumped into fold space. Carrying news that would change human history forever, the news spread across human space like fire through dry grass. Within hours of Catherine Morris returning to Earth, every colony, every station, every ship knew what the Galactic Council had decided. Humanity had been judged unworthy of the stars. The reactions were immediate and divided. On Earth, governments fell into chaos. The European Federation called for immediate compliance, arguing that survival was more important than pride. The Asian coalition demanded more information before making any decision. The American Union split down the middle, with half its senators calling for war and the other half calling for peace. The Secretary General addressed the world from the United Nations. Building in New York, his face was pale and his voice shook slightly. But he tried to project calm. We must consider our options carefully, he said. The Council has technologies far beyond our own. They have destroyed entire species. We cannot fight them with weapons. We must find another way. But in the frontier colonies, a very different conversation was taking place. Admiral Patricia Coleman stood on the bridge of the carrier Constellation. It's a flagship of humanity's outer fleet. She was 61 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles to count. She had served in the military for 40 years, starting as a young pilot during the Mars Rebellion and working her way up to the highest rank in the fleet. Her communications officer handed her a tablet containing messages from the colonial governors. She read them one by one, her expression never changing. Titan Colony, we refuse to comply. New Beijing Station, we will not abandon our homes. The mining settlements of the Kepler system, come and take them. Patricia set down the tablet and looked out at the stars. The constellation was currently stationed near the edge of human space, 3 months' travel from Earth at conventional speeds. From here, she could say, the faint glow of the colony worlds that humanity had built over 3 centuries of expansion. 17 colony worlds. 42 space stations. Hundreds of mining outposts and research facilities. Millions of people who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. The Council wanted them to give all of that up. To return to a single planet and wait for permission to dream again, Patricia opened a channel to her captains. There were 37 ships under her command, ranging from small patrol vessels to heavy cruisers. Not nearly enough to fight the Council, but enough to make a statement. "This is Admiral Coleman," she said. "I have received the colonial response to the Council's ultimatum. 17 governors have declared their refusal to comply. I am asking each of you to make your own choice. I will not order anyone to fight, but I will not order anyone to surrender either." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I have served this fleet for 40 years. I have seen humanity at its worst. I watched the Mars Rebellion tear families apart. I watched the Titan disaster kill thousands because someone made a mistake. I have seen us fail in ways that would make the Council's judgment seem fair." Her voice hardened. "But I have also seen us at our best. I have seen colonists share their last rations with strangers. I have seen soldiers carry wounded enemies to safety. I have seen scientists work for decades on problems that might never be solved simply because they believed the answers mattered. I have seen us reach across the void of space and build homes where no homes should exist." She looked directly into the camera. "The Council says we are too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable. They are right. We are all of those things. But we are also brave and stubborn and unwilling to accept that the universe has the right to tell us no. I do not know if we can win this fight, but I know that I would rather die standing than live on my knees." She cut the channel and waited. The responses came within minutes. Every single captain declared their intention to stand with her. Meanwhile, on Earth, Catherine Morris was fighting her own battle. She had been summoned to appear. Before the emergency session of the World Council, a gathering of leaders from every major nation, they wanted answers she did not have and solutions she could not provide. "You should have negotiated," the European delegate accused. "You should have asked for more time." "There was no negotiation," Catherine replied calmly. "They had already decided. I was not there to discuss. I was there to receive a sentence, and you should have accepted it," the delegate continued. "Quarantine is not death. We could survive in our solar system. We could wait for them to change their minds." Catherine shook her head. "You do not understand. The Council does not change its mind. They have made the same decisions for 40,000 years. Species that comply are quarantined forever. Species that resist are destroyed. There is no third option." "Then we must comply," the Asian Coalition representative said quietly. "We cannot fight beings who have ruled the galaxy since before humans existed." Catherine was about to respond when a message appeared on her personal device. It was from Admiral Coleman, marked urgent. She read it quickly, then looked up at the assembled leaders. "Appears that some of our citizens have already made their choice," she said. 17 colony worlds have refused to return. Admiral Coleman's fleet has declared its intention to defend them. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted at each other, some demanding that the fleet be ordered to stand down, others arguing that Earth should support the colonies. Catherine slipped out during the confusion. She had work to do. Over the next several days, she buried herself in research. The Council's archives were supposedly the most complete record of galactic history in existence. During her brief visit to the station, she had managed to download a small portion of them onto a hidden device. Now she began searching through the data. looking for something she was not sure existed. The Council had ruled for 40,000 years. In all that time, had anyone ever successfully defied them? Had any species refused judgment and survived? The answer, when she found it, chilled her to the bone. There had been 7. 7 species across the millennia who had said no to the Council. The Kyrthia, the Morven, the Thesan. For others whose names had been partially corrupted in the data, all 7 had been destroyed. Their planets had been sterilized, their colonies obliterated, their people erased from existence. The Council had been so thorough that most of the galaxy did not even know these species had ever existed. But Catherine found something else in the fragments of data, something the Council had tried very hard to hide. Each of the 7 defiant species had possessed something special, something unique, something that had made the Council afraid. The Kyrthia had developed weapons that could tear holes in space itself. The Morven had created artificial minds that could think faster than any organic brain. The Thesan had learned to manipulate the dark energy that drove the universe's expansion. The Council had not destroyed these species simply because they refused to obey. They had destroyed them because they were dangerous, because they had the potential to become something greater than the Council itself. Catherine sat back in her chair, her mind racing. The Council feared potential. They feared change. They feared any species that might one day challenge their 40,000-year reign. Humanity was not being quarantined because they were dangerous now. They were being quarantined because of what they might become. She immediately contacted Admiral Coleman on a secure channel. "I know why they want to stop us," she said, "and I think I know how we might survive." The Admiral listened as Catherine explained what she had found. When she finished, there was a long silence. "So they are afraid of us," Patricia said finally. "Yes, good." The Admiral's voice was cold and hard. "Then let us give them something to really be afraid of." The clock continued to tick. 45 days remained until the Council's deadline. Humanity was running out of time to find a miracle. Catherine Morris had not slept in 3 days. Her office in the New York Diplomatic Building was covered with papers, holographic displays, and empty coffee cups. She had been reading through the Council archives for 72 hours straight. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but she could not stop. Not when she was so close to understanding the 7 destroyed species had all possessed unique technologies. That much she had already discovered, but now she was finding something else. Hidden in corrupted data files and partial records that the Council had tried to erase, the technologies had not been developed by accident. They had emerged because each species had been pushed to the edge of extinction. Desperation had forced them to innovate in ways that peaceful civilizations never would. The Kyrthio had created their space-tearing weapons only after the Council had blockaded their homeworld for 300 years. The Morven had built their artificial minds because their population was dying from a plague the Council refused to help cure. The Thesan had learned to manipulate dark energy as a last, desperate attempt to escape a dying star system. The Council had created the very threats they claimed to be protecting the galaxy from. Their judgment, their quarantines, their blockades had pushed species into corners where they had no choice but to develop dangerous capabilities, and then the Council had destroyed them for it. Catherine shared her findings with a small group of trusted allies. Admiral Coleman received the information aboard the Constellation. Dr. Samuel Torres, the lead physicist at the Ganymede Research Institute, studied the technical data with growing excitement. "This is remarkable," Samuel said during their encrypted video conference. His hair was messy, and his lab coat was stained with something that might have been coffee or might have been chemical residue. "The Thesan dark energy research is incomplete, but what is here suggests they were decades ahead of our current understanding. Can we use it?" Patricia asked bluntly. Samuel hesitated. "Maybe. The principles are sound, but the engineering would take years. We do not have years." "What do we have?" Catherine asked. Samuel pulled up a holographic display showing complex mathematical equations. "We have been working on quantum entanglement applications for decades, communication mostly. But there have always been theoretical discussions about weaponizing the principle," explained Patricia said. Samuel took a deep breath. "Quantum entanglement connects particles across any distance. When you change one particle, the other changes instantly, no matter how far apart they are. We use this for communication because the effect is faster than light. He manipulated the display, showing diagrams that Catherine did not fully understand. But there is another application we have never pursued because it seemed too dangerous. If you could entangle matter at a large scale and then force a probability collapse, it could theoretically cause catastrophic effects at a distance. Matter could be forced into impossible states. Energy could be released in ways that violate normal physics. Patricia leaned forward. You are describing a weapon. I am describing the most dangerous weapon ever conceived, Samuel replied. Something that could reach across space and destroy targets without any physical projectile or energy beam. Something that operates outside the normal rules of cause and effect. Can you build it? Catherine asked. Samuel was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. The mathematics suggest it is possible, but we have never tested anything like this. It could work perfectly. It could fail completely. It could destroy us along with our enemies. How long would you need? Months, at minimum. Probably years to be safe. We have 30 days, Patricia said. Samuel closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was a determination in his face that had not been there before. Then I will need more people. The best quantum physicists in human space. And I will need resources. All the resources you can give me. Catherine nodded. You will have them. Whatever you need. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. On Earth, Catherine worked to keep the World Council from surrendering. She argued, persuaded, threatened, and occasionally lied to by time. The Secretary General wanted to comply with the Council's demands, but Catherine convinced him to wait just a little longer. We are working on something, she told him. Give us time. Time for what? He demanded hope. In space, Admiral Coleman reorganized her fleet. She moved ships to defensive positions around the most populated colonies. Knowing that they would be the Council's first targets, she established communication protocols that could not be intercepted. Supply lines that could not be easily cut. She also began recruiting. Civilians with military experience were offered positions in the fleet. Cargo ships were retrofitted with weapons. Mining vessels were converted into makeshift warships. It was not much, but every ship counted, and on Ganymede. Dr. Samuel Torres worked around the clock. His team grew from 12 people to over 200 as the best scientific minds in human. Space answered Catherine's call. They came from universities, research stations, and corporate laboratories. They came because they believed in what Samuel was trying to do. The device they were building had no official name. But Samuel privately called it the probability collapse engine. It consisted of a massive chamber filled with specially prepared particles, all entangled at the quantum level with matter located on council ships, hundreds of light years away. Getting that entangled matter in place was the hardest part. They needed samples from council vessels, particles that could be linked to targets. Catherine arranged for covert operations to collect debris from council ships that had visited human space over the centuries. It was not much, but it was enough to test the principle. The first test occurred on day 40-3. Samuel and his team entangled a small collection of particles with a piece of council alloy recovered from an ancient crash site. Then they activated the collapse sequence. The results were terrifying. The target sample, located in a sealed chamber 300 meters away, simply ceased to exist in its normal form. It did not explode or vaporize. It scattered across probability space, existing in thousands of different states simultaneously, none of them stable. Samuel stared at the readings for a long time. It works, he whispered. God help us. It actually works. But there were problems. The device required enormous amounts of energy to operate. It was unstable, prone to fluctuations that could cause it to malfunction or even destroy itself. And they had no way to predict exactly what would happen when it was used at full scale against actual targets. We need more time, Samuel told Catherine during their next conference. The device is not ready. If we use it now, we might destroy ourselves instead of our enemies. We do not have more time, Catherine replied. The Council's fleet will arrive in 17 days. Samuel ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration that Catherine had come to recognize. Then we will have to take the risk, he said finally. I will continue working until the last possible moment. Maybe we can stabilize it. Maybe we can find a way to control the effect more precisely. And if you cannot? Samuel met her eyes through the screen. Then we use it anyway, because the alternative is extinction. Catherine nodded slowly. Agreed. Do what you can, Doctor. Humanity is counting on you. She cut the connection and sat alone in her office, staring at the stars through her window. 17 days. 17 days until the Council's fleet arrived. 17 days until humanity faced the greatest test in its history. She thought about all the people who would die if they failed. Billions on Earth, millions in the colonies. Children who had never done anything wrong except be born human. She thought about the Council. Ancient and powerful and convinced of their own righteousness. They had ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years by crushing anyone who dared to challenge them. They believed they were protecting the universe from chaos. They were wrong. Humanity was chaos. Humanity was unpredictable and aggressive and dangerous. But humanity was also creative and resilient, utterly unwilling to accept defeat. The Council had made a mistake when they decided to judge humanity. They had given humans something they should never have given them. A reason to fight? Catherine turned away from the window and got back to work. There was still so much to do. The Council's enforcement fleet emerged from fold space on the 59th day. Just as they had promised, 300 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system, their forms casting shadows against the distant stars. Each vessel was larger than anything humanity had ever built, sleek and deadly and ancient beyond measure. Their hulls were made of materials that human scientists could not identify. Their weapons were powered by energies that human physics could barely describe. Admiral Patricia Coleman stood on the bridge of the Constellation, watching the enemy fleet on her tactical display. Her own forces were pathetically small in comparison. 73 ships hastily assembled from every corner of human space. Cargo vessels with bolted-on weapons. Mining ships with reinforced hulls. A handful of actual warships that had been designed for combat. Against 300 Council vessels, it was barely a speed bump. But Patricia had not come here to win. She had come here to buy time. The Velthory commander broadcast a message on all frequencies. Its crystalline voice filled every human ship, every station, every colony. Humans, your deadline has expired. You will surrender immediately and submit to quarantine. All vessels will power down their engines and await collection. Any resistance will be met with immediate and total destruction. You have 1 hour to comply. Patricia opened a channel of her own. Her message went out to every human who could hear it, from the colonies at the edge of space to the bunkers deep beneath Earth's surface. This is Admiral Coleman. To the Galactic Council and to all species who can hear my voice, I have a response to your ultimatum. She paused, letting the silence stretch. No. The word hung in the void between stars. Humanity refuses your judgment. We reject your quarantine. We deny your authority to decide our fate. You have ruled this galaxy for 40,000 years, through fear and extinction. You have crushed every species that dared to challenge your power. You believe that gives you the right to determine who lives and who dies? Her voice hardened. You are wrong. We did not ask for your permission to exist. We did not ask for your approval to reach the stars. And we will not ask for your mercy now. If you want to destroy us, you will have to earn it. Every ship, every station, every colony, every single human being will fight you until our last breath. She cut the transmission. The Council fleet began to move. The battle started near Neptune, where Patricia had positioned her largest ships. The first exchange of fire was devastating. Council weapons tore through human shields like paper. The cruiser Defiant exploded in a ball of plasma, taking 400 crew members with it. The destroyer Lightning was cut in half by a beam of focused gravity that crushed its hull like an empty can. Within the first hour, humanity lost 60 ships. 12,000 people died in the void. But the fleet did not break. Captain Lisa Grant commanded the destroyer Relentless, one of the few ships that had actually been designed for combat. When she saw the Council's command vessel moving into position to destroy the Neptune stations, she made a decision without hesitation. All hands, this is the captain. We are going to ram the command ship. Anyone who wants to leave, get to the escape pods now. You have 2 minutes. No one left. The Relentless accelerated toward the massive Council vessel, dodging weapons fire through a combination of skill and pure luck. Lisa kept her hands steady on the controls as her ship shook from near misses and glancing blows. "Steady," she said to her crew. "Steady." At the last moment, the Council ship tried to turn away. It was too late. The Relentless struck its engine section at full speed, detonating its reactor in a blast that took both vessels with it. Lisa Grant and her crew of 200 died instantly, but the Neptune stations were saved, at least for a few more hours. Similar acts of sacrifice happened across the battlefield. Lieutenant Marcus Webb was piloting a small fighter when his weapons failed. Rather than retreat, he aimed his damaged craft at the engine core of a Council cruiser and accelerated. The resulting explosion disabled the enemy ship, taking it out of the fight. The colonists of Triton Station knew they could not escape. When Council ships approached to destroy them, they broadcast a final message that was heard across human space. "We are the people of Triton. We came here to build a new home among the stars. We worked and dreamed and raised our children in the light of distant suns. The Council says we are dangerous. Perhaps they are right, because we would rather die free than live as prisoners. Remember us." Station went dark, but its message lived on. On Earth, Catherine Morris watched the battle unfold from a command center deep underground. The feeds showed ship after ship dying, thousands of lives winking out like candles in a hurricane. She felt each loss like a physical wound. Beside her, Dr. Samuel Torres worked frantically on his equipment. The probability collapse engine had been transported to Earth 3 days ago, hidden in a facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. It was still not stable. Every test showed different results. There was no guarantee it would work. How long? Catherine asked the same question she had been asking for days. Hours, maybe less. "We are close, but the calibration is still wrong. If we activate it now, the effect could spread beyond our intended targets. It could hit our own ships. It could hit Earth." "The fleet cannot hold much longer," Catherine said quietly. "Patricia's throwing everything she has at them, but it is not enough. The Council ships are barely damaged." Samuel looked at the readouts, his face pale with exhaustion and fear. I know. Just give me a little more time." In space, Admiral Coleman was making her own calculations. Her fleet had been reduced to 31 ships. The Council had lost only 12 vessels, and most of those had been disabled rather than destroyed. The math was clear. Humanity could not win this fight through its conventional means, but winning had never been the plan. Patricia opened a channel to her remaining ships. "All vessels fall back to secondary positions. We need to buy more time for the surface teams." "Admiral," her tactical officer said urgently, "if we fall back, the Council will have a clear path to Earth." "I know," Patricia replied. "That is why we are not going to fall back very far. We are going to make them fight for every kilometer." The retreat was more of a fighting withdrawal. Human ships would fall back, regroup, launch attacks, and fall back again. Each engagement cost them more vessels, more lives, but it also slowed the Council's advance. Hours passed. The Council fleet drew closer to Earth with each passing minute. On the planet's surface, billions of people watched the sky and waited for the end. Catherine stood over Samuel's shoulder, watching him work. The device hummed with barely contained energy, its displays showing readings that fluctuated wildly. "It is now or never," she said. "The Council fleet will be in range of Earth in less than an hour." Samuel's hands were shaking. "The calibration is still off. There is a 30% chance the effect will spread beyond our control. And if we do nothing, then we die anyway." Catherine put her hand on his shoulder. "We have been taking risks since we decided to say no. One more will not matter. Samuel closed his eyes. When he opened them, his hands were steady. Beginning activation sequence, he said. God help us all. The device began to glow. Energy readings spiked across every instrument in the facility. Deep beneath the mountains, something that had never existed before came to life. In space, Admiral Coleman saw the readings on her own displays. She did not know exactly what Dr. Torres had built, but she knew it was their last hope. All ships, she broadcast, fall back to minimum safe distance from the Council fleet. Something is about to happen. The human vessels scattered. The Council commander, interpreting the retreat as surrender, ordered pursuit. That was a mistake. At 1700 hours, Greenwich Mean Time, Dr. Samuel Torres activated the probability collapse engine, and the universe changed. The effect spread through the Council fleet like a wave of impossibility. Ships that had been firing their weapons moments before suddenly went dark. Engines that had pushed vessels across the galaxy for thousands of years simply stopped working. Weapons systems fused into their housings, becoming part of the whole rather than separate components. The flagship of the Council Enforcement Fleet, a massive vessel that had destroyed entire civilizations, experienced something even stranger. Its matter began to exist in multiple states simultaneously, unable to settle on a single form. For one horrifying moment, it was both solid and liquid and gas, and something else entirely. Then it simply ceased to be. Scattered across probability space into configurations that could never reassemble. 8T7. Council ships were destroyed in the first seconds. Another 140 were disabled. Their crews unable to understand what had happened to their ancient and supposedly invincible technology. The remaining 73 vessels turned and fled into fold space, retreating to the galactic core to report what they had witnessed. Admiral Patricia Coleman stood on the bridge of the Constellation, staring at her tactical display in disbelief. Where 300 enemy ships had been, there was now only debris and confusion. Did we just win? Her tactical officer asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I do not know, Patricia replied slowly, but I think we just survived. On Earth, Dr. Samuel Torres collapsed into his chair, trembling with exhaustion and relief. The probability collapse engine had worked. It had done exactly what he had hoped, reaching across space to touch the enemy fleet and force their matter into impossible states, but he had seen the readings. The effect had been barely controlled. If it had spread even slightly further, it could have reached the human ships. It could have reached Earth itself. They had won by the narrowest of margins, Catherine. Catherine Maurice found him sitting alone in the control room an hour later. The facility was chaos around them, scientists and technicians running tests and trying to understand what had happened. But Samuel just sat there, staring at nothing.
Ow.
You did it, she said softly. You saved us. Samuel shook his head. I built a weapon that should not exist. I reached into the fabric of reality and tore holes in it. Thousands of beings on those council ships died because I pressed a button. Catherine sat down beside him. Millions of humans would have died if you had not. Billions. Every person on Earth. Every colonist. Every child who ever dreamed of the stars. You gave them a chance to live. At what cost? Catherine was quiet for a moment. I do not know. But I do know that the cost of doing nothing would have been higher. The days that followed were strange and uncertain. The Council did not attack again. Their remaining ships stayed at the galactic core, and no new fleets emerged to threaten human space. For the first time in 40,000 years, the rulers of the galaxy were afraid. Catherine Morris addressed the Council 3 days after the battle, her transmission reaching every corner of the galaxy through networks that humanity had only recently learned to access. To the Galactic Council and all species who hear this message, she began. I speak to you as a representative of humanity, a species you tried to destroy because you feared what we might become. She paused, letting her words carry across the stars. You were right to fear us. Not because we are monsters, but because we are stubborn. Because we refuse to accept limits that others set for us. Because we look at the universe and see not boundaries, but possibilities. Her voice strengthened. You judged us without understanding us. You sentenced us without giving us a chance to speak. You tried to erase us without learning who we are. We showed you something different. We showed you that we would rather die fighting than live in chains." She stood straighter. "But we do not want to be your enemies. We do not want 40,000 years of war. We want what every species wants, the chance to grow, to learn, to reach our potential among the stars. So I offer you something you have never been offered before. Not surrender. Not submission. Partnership." Her eyes were steady. "Join us in building something new. A galaxy where species are not judged by their potential to threaten, but by their willingness to contribute. A galaxy where the young and the old can learn from each other. A galaxy where fear is not the foundation of order." She let the words hang in the silence. "Or you can refuse. You can hide in your ancient stations and watch as the universe changes without you. The choice is yours." The first response came from the Korath, species that had been restricted to 3 systems for 10,000 years because the Council considered them too aggressive. Their message was simple: we stand with humanity. Then came the Veshi, denied expansion rights for millennia because they reproduced too quickly. Then the Draenei, whose homeworld had been quarantined since before humans had developed writing. One by one, younger species of the galaxy began to answer. Species that had been suppressed, controlled, limited by council decree. Species that had dreamed of freedom, but never believed it was possible. The council had maintained order through fear for 40,000 years. But fear only works when it is never challenged. Humanity had challenged it. Humanity had won. Now, others were finding the courage to stand up as well. Admiral Patricia Coleman retired 6 months later, moving to a small farm on Mars, where she could watch the red sunsets in peace. She had done her part. The fleet she had built continued without her, now serving as the core of a new defensive alliance between humanity and its alien allies. Dr. Samuel All. Torres continued his research, but he never built another weapon. Instead, he focused on using quantum principles for construction rather than destruction. His work on matter manipulation eventually led to technologies that could transform barren worlds into habitable ones, a gift he considered partial redemption for what he had created during the war. Catherine. Morris became the first human ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Assembly, a coalition of species who believed in growth over stagnation. It was not a perfect organization. There were disagreements, conflicts, and challenges that would take generations to resolve. But it was a beginning. The Council never formally surrendered. They simply became irrelevant. As more and more species joined the Assembly, the ancient rulers found themselves governing an ever-shrinking portion of the galaxy. Their power had been based on the belief that resistance was futile. Once that belief was shattered, their authority crumbled with it. Years passed, then decades. The galaxy changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Human ships traveled to stars that had been forbidden to them. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers on projects that would have seemed like magic a century before. Human children grew up knowing that the universe was vast and strange and full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and somewhere in the depths of space, on worlds that had been silent for millennia, species began to wake up. Species that had hidden from the Council, that had waited in secret for the day when it would be safe to emerge. They came out of hiding and looked at the stars with fresh eyes. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. It was ruled by hope. Catherine Morris was very old when she finally retired. She spent her last years on Earth in a small house overlooking the ocean. She liked to sit on her porch in the evenings, watching the stars appear one by one as the sky darkened. Sometimes she thought about the council chamber where everything had begun, about the moment when she had been told that humanity would be quarantined or destroyed, about the choice she had made to walk out rather than accept that fate. She had not known then what would happen. She had not known if humanity would survive, let alone triumph. She had simply refused to bow to beings who claimed the right to judge her, species unworthy. That refusal had changed everything. A young girl from the neighborhood often came to visit her. She liked to ask questions about the old days. about the war and the council and how humanity had earned its place among the stars. Were you afraid? The girl asked one evening. Catherine smiled. Every moment? Then why did you do it? Why did you say no when saying yes would have been safer? Catherine looked up at the stars, at the countless lights that represented worlds and species and possibilities that would never have existed if humanity had surrendered. Because some things are worth more than safety, she said. Because sometimes the only way forward is through, and because humans have never been very good at accepting the word impossible. The girl nodded slowly, not fully understanding, but sensing the truth in the words. Above them, the stars continued to shine. Ships moved between them, carrying travelers and traders and dreamers. The galaxy was alive with activity, with growth, with change. The Council had decided the fate of the galaxy, but humanity had said no, and nothing would ever be the same again.